Thank you very much indeed, Melissa and Charlene. We are running a little bit behind time, but that's because there've been so many interesting questions, and I don't really want to stop that. So we'll have time for a couple of questions if there's any questions before we move on to our final talk. So Cindy Soir has just answered, Charlene, great talk, could actually be benefit to GBS vaccine development, which is currently falling in the SA. So that's a comment, I think, rather than a question. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the sort of one of the first attempts we've made at trying to link genotype and phenotype in this way. So yeah, we're very much looking and hoping to be able to do this more widely for different problems, different organisms. So yeah, good suggestion.
Yeah. That's great. I don't know if there's any other questions. Great work, Melissa. I did enjoy that. Thank you very much for the talk. It is quite amazing, isn't it, when everybody blithely talks about genome data being available, but when you look at it, it's not always quite what you imagine it will be. And it is a sort of a little bit depressing that, and I think we all have to look into our own souls here, that people aren't maybe checking their supplementary data properly. I'm sure that's just omission rather than sins of omission rather than commission, aren't they?
Yes, I think the point is that we could all do better, and our group was the first to put our hands up and say that some of our papers fall into that category. So we will be doing this ourselves moving forward. Sylvan's actually made a good point in the chat asking whether journal editors could help with this, and I think we are seeing a move towards journals being more stringent. But what would be great is if it were easier, if there were systems in place for checks. So that's a thing to think about moving forward, and hopefully something like the NCBI, they could potentially be developing tools like that. So fingers crossed, that would be great.
That's right. And Canny's mentioning about the difficulty in getting genomes from certain environments, and I mean, well, of course, Canny from Africa, and how we improve the coverage, and that's an issue as well, isn't it? Because it's not just a matter of whether the data are collected and the samples are got, but whether people then actually publish them in an appropriate way.
Yes, always a problem. As another South African, it's always sad for me when Africa's so blank. But fingers crossed, we do actually have more African data coming in the new uploads. So watch this space.
Yes, and of course the MRF with there's Linda and on the line, there's and Liz as well. As I see, there are interests in trying to improve coverage. I mean. And of course, it's not just, as I've said in my first talk, it's not always going to be just genomes either. I mean, there's a lot of the samples you're going to get from many settings are not going to be genomic for the foreseeable future, or indeed ever, just because of the other problems. I don't think it's a lack of, she says, it's a lack of sharing data or resequencing less. I think it's a whole mixture of problems, I think. Yeah. Excellent. Well, if anybody's wants to put in a last has the meningococcal genome library been described in a paper, says Mustafa. I think not yet is the answer, isn't it? Coming soon.
Soon.
Yeah. Yes. Hopefully before version 3 is released. I mean, that's the trouble is it's a lot of work, isn't it? Just putting it all together. This is the problem. People always imagine, I think, that these types of genome collections are sort of straightforward, but it's not, as you've shown. It's extremely hard work, and synthesizing the metadata was even worse, wasn't it, Charlene, in a way, having to trawl through papers and link things together.
Yeah, I guess it links to what Melissa's saying about the consistency of data, not just producing the data, but in the detail that you need, and having consistent formats is always helpful, so we don't have to keep.
And this is the hard graft of curation, isn't it? I mean, it was discussed. It was interesting. I don't know if anybody's come along from the AMR conference I was at last week, but there was discussion there about, oh well, people aren't properly, curating AMR loci. Well, of course, some of them are in these schemes, and it is hard, and there's not a lot of credit to be had by it, but it's extremely important. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much to both of you. And Linda's just mentioned that the Global Genome Partnership, part of the WHO, and she's hoping that global roadmap, and we're hoping that's going to make a difference. Yeah, and there's some quite useful comments in the chat, but I think everybody can see those. And in the interest of time, I think we should move on.